Hello fellow monster hunters. In this video I'm going to break down all of Rathian's attacks and teach you hopefully how to read them. How to read her attacks alone is not going to be sufficient knowledge to clear her in speedrunner time, but it's one of the fundamentals that you will want to have down if you hope to do so. She's been a staple of the Monster Hunter franchise from the very first game, and usually appears somewhere early mid-game and never really seems to be especially difficult because you quickly get gear that will make you an overmatch for her. In the Wilds Arena quest, however, she's a much harder fight because of the gear constraints that quest puts you in, and that's especially true if you're going for a fast clear. In Arena gear, you really can't tank a lot of her attacks, and every hit you take is going to eat time. Gaijin Hunter is a proponent of what he has called observation hunts, where you study the monster without specifically trying to kill it, and instead focus on learning its attacks and general behavior. I found these observation hunts to be very useful, and I've recorded mine with Rathian so that we can study each of her attacks in detail together, frame by frame if necessary. So let's start with Rathian's ground attacks, and of those, the most basic ones that she can do, which are her bite attacks. She has a side bite attack, which she can do when you're behind her head and in front of her wings, and she also has a forward lunging bite attack, which she'll do to close distance while on the ground. The first bite attack we're about to look at is her side bite. Her tell for this attack is looking to one side and pulling her head back. I'll pause the video when she's about to do it. And the comboed version of this attack. Now, the attack animations for her side bites are kind of janky, so when you're trying to block them, you want to actually face the base of her neck and not her mouth, which is where it looks like you should be blocking. You can see here that I reflexively try to block in the direction of her mouth, but still get hit. But here, I block in the direction of the base of her neck, which is completely unintuitive, and it works. Here's another example of a good block. Finally, her forward lunge bite, which she telegraphs by pulling in her wings and lowering her head. The tell for this third attack is much less pronounced, and it's very quick because she is enraged. The second of Rathian's ground melee attacks we'll look at is her tail sweep. She telegraphs this attack by looking sharply to the side she's about to sweep in. She'll always do 2 of these attacks in a row unless she gets interrupted, and she can do it anytime she's on the ground, whether she's enraged, exhausted, or in a neutral state. There is a safe area under her, just in front of her feet, but if you get in it, you have to reposition to get in it again after she does the first sweep. Other than that, there isn't that much to defending against this attack. You can evade, like you can with most other attacks, or you can block in the direction that her tail will be coming from. Okay, let's start the attack. Let's look at that again. You can tell this attack is coming instead of the side bite attack by how she's going to flick her tail after this frame. Watch. The tells for the earlier attacks that I showed are subtle and fast, so I would pause them at the frame that I recognize in the beginning. But here with the fireball attacks, they are really damn obvious. Like, you see her whole mouth lighting on fire. She telegraphs her fireball attack by whipping her head to the side and up, and also standing upright. If you watch her head carefully, you'll see that a wound appears on it after each time she shoots a fireball. This is a temporary wound that you can focus strike. It only lasts a few seconds, and if you destroy it, there's a cooldown before one can appear again. Also, you should note that these fireballs are completely blockable, so if you get a perfect block on one, I don't think you take any damage at all, and you can do a counterattack. In the video here, you can see that I'm quite far away from her, and normally this is not ideal, since if I were to get a perfect block on her, I would not be in range to hit her with my counterattack. When Rathian becomes enraged, she shoots 3 fireballs instead of just 1. Front, her right, then her left, in about a 60-degree arc. These are otherwise normal fireballs, and you can block them. Her super fireball, however, which she can also shoot while enraged, you cannot block. Well, I mean you can, but you're going to still be set on fire and take a ton of chip damage. The tell for this super fireball attack is the most obvious tell that she has. Her mouth will be on fire to the point that she's shooting a cloud of sparks out of it. The most basic monster attack in the Monster Hunter franchise is the Roar, and all monsters, including Rathian, can do it. Roars will interrupt any action that does not have iframes, such as an evade or a block, and will briefly prevent you from doing anything else if you get hit by one. In this frame, by standing upright and spreading out her wings, Rathian is telegraphing her fight-starting roar. She'll always try to roar at the beginning of a fight, when she's enraged, after she leaves her exhaustion state, and after a down. Here's me blocking one of her roars, but note that this is a bad position and orientation to be in, because I'm vulnerable from behind to her tail attacks. Rolling is of course the other way you can avoid a roar, but it can be less than ideal because you don't get a counterattack from it. Still better than eating the roar and being paralyzed for a second or so though. If you have a weapon that gets an offset attack, like the hammer, greatsword, or switch axe, you can offset the roar and ignore the effect. I haven't seen such an offset get a flinch or a topple, but I don't know conclusively that it's not possible. It might just incidentally be the iframes that the offset animation gets and not like a special ability of the offset itself to interact with the roar. So the last ground attack we're going to look at is often called the Chickenrun, because that's exactly what it looks like. It's always 3 passes if uninterrupted, and you can tell she's going to do it if she starts looking directly forward with her body completely aligned with her head. Like this. A flinch or topple will stop her, as will a stun, sleep, or paralyze effect. You can also use damaging slinger ammo like Rock Burst to temporarily interrupt her, but she's going to resume unless stopped. You can also block any part of this attack. That wraps it up for Rathian's ground-based attacks, so now let's look at her aerial ones. Rathian's favorite aerial attacks, and probably favorite attacks overall, are her tail flips, which will poison any hunter they hit if they don't have poison resistance. She can do these directly from the ground while launching herself into the air, or while she's already airborne. The attacks which start from the ground have 2 variants. Let's look at the most common one first. This is Rathian's bread and butter flip attack, and it takes the most practice to read. This is because while she's on the ground, her body or other obstructions tend to get in the way of your camera, and the tell for this attack is relatively small. Right now on screen is how she telegraphs her attack. She'll lower her head and raise her hindquarters, and it happens very quickly. The attack hits directly in front of her, and she may stay airborne afterwards or immediately land. Let's look at another one of these. As before, I'll pause when she telegraphs. She still has the same tells, but it's harder to see because it's blended in with at least one other animation. The tells for the diagonal variant of the ground flip attack are completely different, but are much easier to read. She spreads her feet wide apart and raises her head. Rathian will telegraph the aerial version of her vertical flip attack by flicking her tail forward. Watch for it carefully after I unpause the video. The tell is really fast, but it kinda doesn't matter because if she's in the air, you can automatically assume that she's going to do it. There's only one other attack that she'll do directly from the air, and it's much more obvious, so confusing them isn't a problem. You should note that Rathian can follow up that attack with another one, and that she can also do it after doing the ground version. If she's already in the air, she may turn, fly to a different position, or remain in the same place, but before the second attack, she will always flick her tail again. Let's look at another one of those attack combos and pause it when she telegraphs each time. The other aerial attacks you need to watch out for while fighting Rathian are her dive attacks. These have pretty big telegraphs that are hard to miss, but the main challenges in avoiding them are their range and the size of their hitbox. Her whole body will knock you down and do damage. You're probably wondering how I got in this situation. If you see a dive attack coming and for some reason you can't block, or for some reason it doesn't occur to you to, don't roll, run. Or you could use a Superman dive. Unless I completely forgot something, I think that's about it for Rathian's attacks. In the Appendices, I'll explain Rathian's Enraged and Exhausted states, but if you're an old Monster Hunter player, you probably don't need to see those. Anyway, I hope you found my video useful, or at least the clips inside it, and I wish you the best of luck in your next fight with Rathian. After you hit a monster enough, it will become Enraged, which is a special state where it is much faster, much stronger, and has access to more powerful attacks. Each monster has its own unique enraged behavior and will often change in appearance somehow. Rathian, for example, will have fire coming out of her mouth the entire time. You can check the monster's current disposition by looking for a U-like symbol next to its icon on the minimap. If it has no U, or the U is white or yellow, the monster is not yet enraged. If the U is red, it is. Here, Rathian has yet to be enraged, which you can see from a yellow U on the minimap, but that won't last long because I'm hitting her. Now she's really angry. Note that her U has changed from yellow to red. Rathian will almost always roar when she becomes enraged, but here I flinch her immediately and interrupt her during her charge up for it. The exhaustion state a monster can enter is like the opposite of its enraged state. When exhausted, Rathian and other monsters will visibly drool, they will become very slow to the point of barely being able to move, and they will only have access to their weakest attacks. Rathian's fireball, for example, doesn't come out of her mouth completely, but it can still give her a temporary wound there. Weapons that do stun can also generally do exhaust damage, which will result in this state when enough of it has been dealt. And besides the drool, you can tell they're exhausted by the little drooling dino icon next to theirs on the minimap.